And it's about that time for all of us to do two things. The first, time to prepare for 2024. The time for taxes, at least 2024 taxes, starts now. But also, in terms of now filing 2023 taxes, the time is also now. So you're going to want to make sure that you start gathering all your documents so that you're ready to file your taxes. And of course, maybe so you can avoid having to file an extension. So I've got the tax prep checklist here. A digital copy will be available. If you wanted a paper copy, let me know. You could come and stop by. I'll print one out for you and I'll give it to you. But let's go ahead and maybe just break down a few of the common items that we'll have. So if you worked a W-2 job or you were an employee, you're going to have a W-2, which is going to show your employment income. Now, if you had health insurance, you're going to receive a 1095. Specifically, if you received a 1095A, meaning you had health insurance through the marketplace, you definitely want to make sure that you bring that to whoever's preparing your taxes, whether it's yourself or whether it's a tax professional. Why? If you try to e-file without that information, your return will automatically get rejected. If you had mortgage interest, you might have a 1098 or 1099. You're going to want to make sure you bring that. If you were self-employed or you were a contractor, you would have received 1099s. Even if you had rental income, you will receive a 1099. Depending on what type of income, a different box might be received. If you received rent, that'll be on the 1099 MISC, miscellaneous. That dollar amount will be in the rent section. If you received income as a non-employee compensation, as a non-employee, you will receive a 1099 NEC. Make sure you bring that. Now, don't forget that you can write off the relative business expenses so that you don't have to pay taxes or essentially on that full number, but you get to write off all your business expenses, which you can't really do that if you have a W-2. So a little bit of a perk. If you did any trades, you'll have another 1099B from your brokerage. That information will then go on to Schedule D and Form 8949. So make sure that you bring all of that, whether it's Robinhood, TD Ameritrade, Coinbase. If you KYC'd, if you verified and that institution knows their customer, know your customer, KYC, you definitely want to make sure you bring it, because what happens is they send that information over to the IRS. And if you don't file with that information, your return might get accepted. But guess what? You're going to get a notice maybe a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe 2 years later saying, hey, you didn't report this income. So avoid any unnecessary penalties and fines. If you had an IRA, you will receive a 5498. That would just kind of show information, contributions. If you did any donations, that is going to be really only valid if you itemize your return, but definitely just make sure you have it just in case, because if for some reason you're itemized along with your, your contributions, your medical expenses, any taxes that you paid from a state or property tax level, mortgage interest, all of that could essentially help you have a higher itemized deduction versus the standard deduction, which would mean that you could deduct more than what the IRS automatically gives you. And we talked about self-employed, but again, if you were self-employed or you had some side hustle income, make sure you have your income and your expenses. Think of it like whatever revenue you received being self-employed. Let's say you were a YouTube sensation, a YouTube artist, right? And you maybe do makeup tutorials and you generate money through YouTube. YouTube most likely is going to send you a 1099. You have to report that income on your Schedule C or whatever form you file. Now you do get to write off whatever expenses that you had relative to you making that income. So for example, of course you have your normal office expenses, bank charges, advertising, but now you being maybe a YouTube person that does makeup, you could potentially write off your cost of the goods that you have to purchase. So let's say you're buying makeup, you could write that off, where me as an accountant, I can write off makeup. Now, maybe if I was saying, hey, I did it for an advertising video, and that advertising video was for business or it's generating revenue, okay, maybe we could justify it, but for the most part, not really. So think of the expenses that are relative to your industry, to the profession that you do. And then if you have rental property, same thing. Make sure you get that rental income, and then make sure you have those rental expenses, which might be HOA, which might be property taxes, which might be repairs and maintenance, which might be cleaning. And that's really the main documents that you'll want to need, that you're gonna need. You're gonna want to bring those again either with you when you're preparing your own taxes, or again if you have a more complex scenario and you're using a tax professional, make sure that you deliver it to them. That's a tax prep checklist. This was just a quick breakdown. There's probably many forms, but from a general consensus, I'd say that these right here are what probably most people would have. There are other forms and special items that certain people might receive that others won't. One of those might be like a K1, in which if you do have a K1, you most likely have an accountant and you've probably already gone through this information. So I appreciate your time. If you want a copy of this, again, you can DM me, you can reach out to me, email me, call me, text me. Let me know you want to stop by and get a paper copy, or if you want a digital copy, it's probably somewhere down below or up above where you can just click the link and easily get a copy for yourself.